A very good evening to all the participants. Today we have with us Professor Dr. G.B. Reddy sir, DPIIT IPR Chair Professor, to share with us his knowledge on the topic of counterfeiting and piracy, IP issues and challenges. Now I request our colleague, Mr. A. Srinivas Rao, to please introduce today's resource person.
So the initiative which we have started in 2021 and has now reached its 29th episode with its consistent performance, lectures, varied initiatives like essay writing competition and compiling of edited book and many more. IPR is directly related to protect the interest of intellectual property. So obviously there remains a pecuniary interest of some of the commercial organizations, and therefore the challenge is related to counterfeiting and piracy remains. Today we are going to hear some of these challenges from our chief. And it is my privilege and honor to introduce our chief of DPIIT IPR Chair, OU Hyderabad, India, who doesn't need any introduction to our fraternity. But as a formal introduction, Professor Dr. G.B. Reddy sir is a lawyer turned academician. He's an alumnus of Osmania University who did his LL.M in constitutional law and Ph.D. on the topic Supreme Court and Judicial Activism, its contribution in specific areas of constitutional law after 1980, and PG Diploma in Human Rights from University of Hyderabad. His areas of specialization is constitutional law in LL.M and judicial activism in Ph.D. Interestingly, he specialized in the area of intellectual property as an independent researcher, publisher, teacher. He's an achiever by securing 3 gold medals, 1 in LL.B and 1 in gold medal in LL.M, apart from being the first candidate to have qualified for UGC-JRF in law from Osmania University in 1993. Before joining the faculty of law, Osmania University, he also practiced in High Court of Andhra Pradesh for about 7 years. He also authored 24 well-received books on law, including women and law, intellectual property rights and law, copyright law in India, practical advocacy of law, right to information, and law and judicial activism in India. 2 of his books, namely Women and Law and Judicial Activism in India, have been reviewed favorably in book review section of the Hindu by Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer. He also published more than 83 articles on law in standard national and international journals. He participated in national and international seminars, workshops, and on conferences on law and allied subjects, and visited Japan, Malaysia, Singapore, South Korea, and Thailand. He has also offered 5 Swayam courses on human rights, international law and international humanitarian law, intellectual property rights and competition law, Indian judicial system, legal aid and environment protection, private international law and alternative dispute resolution, legal theory and law relating to women, in which more than 50,000 students have taken up those courses. Presently, he holds the position of Director of PGRR Center for Distant Education and was a former Director for University Foreign Relations Office, Osmania University, and was the Founder Director of Legal Cell of the University. He is a former Dean, Faculty of Law Head, Department of Law and Principal, University College of Law at Osmania University. Most prestigiously, he was also awarded the State Best Teacher Award by the Telangana state government in 2021. So it is my privilege to introduce such a great personality with you all. And I would like to request sir to please take over the frame of this lecture, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivas Rao, for a very generous introduction. Very good evening to all the respected colleagues, dear participants. I thank all of you for being with us in our journey of Know Your IP for the last almost 30 weeks. And today's topic is counterfeiting and piracy of goods, IPR issues and challenges. What triggered, in fact, my volunteering to address today's session was a program organized by CPAM of Department of Industry and Commerce and the International Trade Promotion, the DIPPT, recently in the Police Academy, State Police Academy, where they asked me to, share some of my experiences as a resource person. And of course, the beneficiaries were police officials ranging from sub-inspectors to additional SPs. Then I thought that probably it would be better if the DPIIT Chair, Osmania University, also shares some of these stray and random thoughts on a very important topic of counterfeiting. It would be befitting. That is how I am here. I thank you. I would like to remind you that we are living in a pirated world, a world full of counterfeits, and probably the mechanism we have with us today may not be sufficient to exactly identify what exactly is the genuine copy or the fake copy, whether it is the goods, sometimes the services, and more often the copyrighted works. We come across, many counterfeits in our day-to-day life. However, the days of thinking that intellectual property rights are private rights are gone. Today, it's not only the private individuals, but also the state, the law enforcement officials, the authorities, and the other stakeholders like the licensees, assignees, registered users, so on and so forth. They are also equally concerned about the intellectual property violations. And probably this is one area which concerns the enforcement officials, including the customs officials, and also the police. Of course, the police officers probably are getting sensitized more and more about the need to intervene in the matters of counterfeiting nowadays. But the fact remains that if there is swift action, then the public interest can be better protected. The government interest can be better protected. And the intellectual property regime offers any number of opportunities and provides many flexibilities for the law enforcement officials also to intervene. So therefore, with these few preliminary observations, I would like to start a small presentation. In fact, on the very first slide, you come across so many counterfeits. It's very difficult to, in fact, distinguish between the originals and counterfeits. You can see, and whether it is the shoes or, in fact, fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG, or cosmetics, whatever it is. Look at Coca-Cola. In fact, you come across Coca-Cola also. If you look at that, can, the tin. Same is the case with Colgate and Coolgate. And there are many more like that. And fortunately or unfortunately, we come across these things almost in our day-to-day life. And my concern is only about the intellectual property issues. Again, I would like to refresh your memory with regard to the meaning of counterfeit. Counterfeit is nothing but something of an imitation which is not authorized. Unauthorized imitation, illegal imitation of something which is original. The origin I have already mentioned there, the French words contre and faire. Ultimately, to make the imitation goods is part of the counterfeiting. And if you go for the dictionary meaning and the law dictionary meaning, it's there on your screen. It includes producing or selling an item which looks like a reproduction of a trademark. And just now we have seen whether it is Coca-Cola, Nike becomes Hikey, whatever. But the ultimate loser happens to be the consumer, because the consumer probably is not aware as to exactly which is original and which is fake. And Any counterfeit is prepared with low quality material. Otherwise, I don't think, there won't be much difference between the originals and counterfeit goods. But the imitators are so intelligent that they make the copies which are appearing as if they are the originals, as simple as that, especially in the case of brands, luxury brands. In one of the slides, we will show you how Adidas has transformed into so many counterfeit brands. And probably there is no sector which is not affected by counterfeit goods today, whether it is fashion, in fact, goods, Calvin Klein or Tommy Hilfiger or many more. And in fact, our people who are in the other countries say that, in fact, one t-shirt may cost around 5,000 rupees, whereas you will get for only 100 or 120 rupees here. It's a counterfeit. Same is the case with shoes, accessories, musical works, software. Of course, that has got something to do with the piracy more. Pharmaceuticals. During the COVID era, we have come across number of fake products, including the, in fact, masks, the hand wash, sanitary, and even the injections like remdesivir, many more, which were doing rounds, but most of them were counterfeits. According to one study, about 38% of the pharmaceuticals were counterfeits, including cigarettes, even vehicles, airplane components. Imagine a situation where our, aeroplane, whether Boeing or whatever, uses some counterfeit component and something happens in the mid-air. Same is the case with others like consumer goods, electronics, so on and so forth. But the point is very simple. Counterfeiting affects more than one kind of intellectual property, one form of intellectual property, whether it's trademarks or copyright, even patents. Patented things also can be counterfeited, though Patents Act doesn't provide for penal provisions. Same is the case with GIs. Sometimes it may so happen that Nalgonda orange may be sold as Nagpur orange. Nalgonda orange is not, in fact, a GI, whereas Nagpur orange is a GI. Same is the case with the other, in fact, forms of intellectual property. Well, we have, in fact, two expressions which appear to be identical, but actually which are not. We use two expressions. One is counterfeit and the other one is piracy. There are certain common characteristics. Both of them involve infringement of intellectual property rights. Both of them require copying and imitation in case of the protected works. However, when you look at the counterfeit, it denotes more of imitation, like imitation jewelry. Same is the case with counterfeiting. It means to imitate something with the intention to practice deception. Counterfeit is only for the purpose of deception. Nobody can claim the right to fair use in the case of counterfeit goods. But when it comes to piracy, piracy is not imitation, but the production of almost the exact copy of the original, but unauthorized production. Maybe the musical works, maybe the books, software, or even cinematograph films. Everywhere you come across piracy. We are living in a pirated world. Then both of them are illegal, as I already mentioned, and in both the cases we can invoke civil and criminal laws or remedies, and these are known as IP crimes, intellectual property crimes, international. So if you look at the right part of this slide, you will find that there are three kinds of goods which will be making rounds in our day-to-day markets. Counterfeits I have already mentioned. So whether it is a handbag, whether it is the logo, Apple logo, right? And we have seen iPhone shoes, because iPhone is a magical word. They have used iPhone on the shoes. And piracy I have already mentioned. Piracy is nothing but music piracy, cinema piracy. We are living in a country where, long time back, a James Bond movie was not released in India because its pirated CDs were making rounds in Karachi, capital of counterfeiting in Pakistan, like Bombay in India, much before its official release. Same thing might happen even now. But in between, you have certain other things called knockoffs. So knockoffs are, here what you need to understand is that it resembles a branded thing, but not branded. In shape, it may be the same. In appearance, it may be the same. But it is not legitimate. But such, in fact, the goods will be making rounds. Knockoffs. Knockoffs may not be using any brands at all sometimes, right? They imitate. From a distance, they appear as if they are the originals. Simple logic. Counterfeiting mostly occurs when there is false application of trademarks or, falsification of trademarks. Most of you, if you are Telugu speaking people, must have watched a movie called DJ Tillu in recent months. There the hero was shown with his t-shirt with number of labels around. So he would apply that particular label, fake label, to the t-shirt as if, to make it appear as if he is wearing a branded t-shirt. This is what happens in our day-to-day life. But in the process, most of us forget what happens to the government by way of loss of revenue, what happens to the original stakeholders, how the cinema industry is affected. So these are the things which we may have to consider. Then why, in fact, intellectual property should be discussed so much, especially in the context of counterfeiting. You can see the intellectual property always benefits the economy, because any trade involving the goods or services with IP protection will certainly result in payment of more taxes, generation of more employment. And if any piracy takes place, a pirate doesn't pay a single paisa. Counterfeits don't pay anything. And the people with smuggled goods, in fact, who trade in smuggled goods, they don't pay any customs duties. As simple as that. And the net result is that there is a huge loss to the public exchequer and by way of loss of revenue. Therefore, we must protect the intellectual property. Second one, now everyone is talking about ease of doing business. And one of the important parameters is not only global patent index, but also the FDI. And effective intellectual property protection always attracts more FDI. And I think this is proven beyond any doubt. Then another important point, intellectual property, very well, leads to further creation of, innovation. More and more kinds of intellectual property, more inventions, more research, more designs. Then today you look at the National Intellectual Property Policy of 2016, dated May 12, you will find that there are special provisions with regard to SMEs, small and medium enterprises. We are talking about the concessions being given to startups, especially with regard to, registration and IP applications. You can see even the offices of the intellectual property in India have changed their rules in order to accommodate the startups. And that will create, again, more wealth, more innovation. Last but not the least, the consumers and society. If a fake injection is given, if fake goods are used, if fake services are utilized, just see what is going to happen to the consumers as well as the society. People say China Bazaar. China Bazaar is the best example of counterfeits. And then there was one more, I don't remember exactly, Favorite or something. There used to be 2 or 3 stores, only imitation, nothing but imitation. And you could get any brand like, goods or services. Then, again, we are speaking about the intellectual property crime. Normally people say that, no, intellectual property and crime, they don't go together. But they indeed go together. What is intellectual property is too late in the day. This is the 29th lecture, and before that also you have been quite aware of this. But when you are talking about intellectual property crimes, two things always come to our mind. One is counterfeiting, we have already seen. The second one is piracy. And no stakeholders' permission is taken, no licenses are obtained, no assignment is made, no technology transfer takes place. It is there for everyone to, resort to this. And you can see Nike becomes Hikey, right? Adidas becomes Diads. Second one, Puma becomes Fuma. Then Nokia becomes Nokla. Panasonic becomes Panasami. And there are so many. Everywhere you come across this. People, in fact, rush to CTC, for example. In fact, CTC is near Patni, Secunderabad. Whenever you want to purchase certain, in fact, computer peripherals and all, people rush there. I'm sure that there are genuine products, but I'm also sure that there are a number of fake products. That is the point, as simple as that. And let me share an example. Recently, my son met with an accident. His iPhone went for a toss. So the screen, in fact, the complete screen got damaged. Then I said, it's iPhone, must be very costly. He said, no, don't worry. I have already spoken to someone. For 4,500, it will be fixed. It was indeed fixed. But it's a fake. We know that. As simple as that. Since the phone is old, he's using the fake one. But the question is, sometimes using those fake products will result in, so much damage, not only to the individuals, but also to the society and the state. Look at these, on the left side, you come across genuine fake watches, especially in many of the web stores, Amazon, so on and so forth. You come across watches which look like Rolex, Gucci, and many more, and you will get them for 1,000 rupees, 500 rupees, whereas a Rolex watch may cost, maybe few lakhs and sometimes, nearer to a crore also, depending on that. Same is the case with Adidas. The poor man's Adidas can be seen on the left side. Adidas, Didasa, Diad, whatever it is, there are so many. And look at those slippers, Nike. It's very difficult. By the first look, it's very difficult to distinguish between these. And iPhone, it was really surprising. iPhone was used on the shoes, and any person who may think that, Apple fellow is, in fact, entering the sector of the shoes and others. Just look at this. And this is an everyday affair. Then counterfeiting, I already mentioned. It may take place in many areas. So fashion industry is one of the biggest areas. The second one is brand counterfeiting. Many people may watch fashion TV for whatever purpose. I don't want to go into that. But people also look at the various, that Pirelli and all, you must have seen. Don't look at the models. Look at the, the apparel they are wearing, the jewelry they are wearing. And that may be original in majority of the cases. But in other parts of the society, you come across so much fashion piracy, forgery, brand counterfeiting. We have seen Adidas, Adidas, Nike, Hikey. Product counterfeiting, especially in the sector of fast-moving consumer goods. We come across so many goods with fake brands. Software. Let me, give something of a concrete example. When we purchase a new system, maybe many people till recently used to go for assembled system. Means what? They used to get one component from one company, other component from other company. Most of them were not original. Then even software was pirated software which was installed. So the technician who comes, he comes with a small bag full of CDs and DVDs. Whichever program you want to install, he would do it free of cost, maybe 1,000, 1,200. Even MS Office also will be installed. But in the computer field, certainly we have the software piracy, counterfeiting. Medicines, how dangerous it is. When we are talking about registration of similar trademark in medicines, the courts have been sounding caution that they are warning us. Here you must be very careful. See, ask any of the assistant registrars of trademarks, they would vouch for it. Same is the case with alcohol, cigarettes, many more, right? Even in food and beverages, auto parts, cosmetic products, everything is the subject matter of counterfeit. And let's go to the, trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, the TRIPS agreement, what it talks about the counterfeit trade goods, and similarly pirated copyright goods. The definition is here. Counterfeit is not defined under the Trademarks Act, nor under the Copyright Act. Only infringement is used. But when you look at the definition of counterfeit trademark goods, you can see it means any goods including packaging bearing without authorization a trademark identical to the trademark, right? And one trademark is validly registered in respect of certain goods, and the other trademark is not registered. It is identical, almost imitation of the other trademark, and it's very difficult to distinguish, right? So that is counterfeit trademark. And same is the case with pirated copyright goods. So we are talking about goods which are made without the consent of the right holder or person duly authorized by the right holder. And of course, sometimes the intellectuals give a wonderful name called fair use, fair, dealing and all, like in the case of Rameshwari photocopying works or in the case of Sci-Hub, right? But maybe, in majority of the cases, point is very simple. I have been saying this for a very long time. Our need of life-saving drug cannot be compared to the need to read a copyrighted work or enjoy copyrighted music. Both of them are not on the same footing. So if in the case of life-saving drugs, if anyone is following a shortcut, right, that may be, generic drugs, this and that, fine. But it may not be the case, especially in the case of copyrighted works. And continuing with the same TRIPS agreement, look at Article 61. It imposes an obligation on the member states, including India, to provide for criminal procedures and penalties. Of course, Trademarks Act contains any number of provisions. Look beyond Section 100, you will find, right? Similarly, imprisonment, monetary fines, so on and so forth, it's happening. Now, recently, I came across a live case where telugumatrimony.com people sued some other matrimony called Todu Nida, matrimony.com, and ultimately Madras High Court made an injunction absolute in favor of telugumatrimony.com, because that gentleman seems to have occupied within that different communities matrimonies again, Kama matrimony, Vaishya matrimony, something like that, almost every caste. Point is very simple. It happens, and monetary, in fact, fine sometimes is quite deterrent. That's the point. And there may also be other remedies. There are remedies. TRIPS agreement mandates that, because, there can be seizure, there can be forfeiture, there can be destruction. Recently, I have seen bulldozers being used by Visakhapatnam police to destroy the unauthorized silencers, the silencers which are fitted to the two-wheelers, which create lot of noise. Same thing happened to pirated CDs and DVDs also, pirated liquor bottles, right? This is one. And criminal procedure, penalty, so on and so forth. India is not lagging behind as far as the legal mechanism is concerned. This is the point I am trying to make out. And what is the position of counterfeiting in India? You can see. And in fact, FICCI, one of the trade bodies, it released a report called Invisible Enemy, again, impact of smuggling on Indian economy and employment. That was for almost 5 years old data, 2017 and 18. And look at that, more than 1 lakh crores monetary loss in 7 manufacturing sectors. And out of which almost 40,000 crores loss was to the government. As I already said, no pirate, no person who counterfeits pays a single dime to the government by way of taxes. And what is more alarming is the total loss of employment. Almost 16.36 lakhs people would have got some job or other, either as, gig workers or whatever it is. This is one. Then another important facet, the illicit trade sometimes results in sponsoring terrorism as well as organized crimes. Sometime in 2004-5, Osmania University Department of Law organized a series of seminars. One of them was on copyright protection. We had a high-ranking, senior IPS officer called Mr. Balachandran. He came all the way from Delhi. In his probably introductory or valedictory speech, he was mentioning about the utilization, not utilization, but use of the proceeds of the piracy for terrorist activities. And he was trying to mention that more than 800 crores loss, and that goes into, in fact, illegal channels. This is the point. And Delhi is not only the capital of India, it is also the capital of counterfeiting. Right? You will find so many, because whenever I go to Delhi for some purpose, people always say, let's go to CP. CP stands for Connaught Place or Palika Bazaar. And that is one of the best places probably where we get the counterfeited goods almost at throwaway prices. And look at this, 75% of India's counterfeit products are found in Delhi. Even with regard to automobiles, you must have seen. You ask for accessories and all, they say, no, better purchase from Delhi, they are cheaper. We have to think why they are cheaper. This is the point. Then you look, and there is a market here. One of my colleagues, Dr. Irfan, helped me in this 2021 review of notorious markets for counterfeiting and piracy. So every year they are releasing, reports periodically. And if you look at the 21 review, you will find that some of the markets, as far as India is concerned, are already identified. Hirapanna market in Mumbai, Kidarpur market in Kolkata, Palika Bazaar in New Delhi, Tank Road, Delhi. I don't know whether it includes Jumeirah Bazaar in Hyderabad, but that normally is known for selling the goods stolen. Now, one of the Telugu film producers produced a movie called Chor Bazaar. Chor Bazaar, it may not be different as far as counterfeiting is concerned. And when you look at the drugs, especially the medicines are concerned, about 5% of the drugs are counterfeit and 0.3%, luckily it is very less, they are spurious. And if anyone wants counterfeit drugs, one can go to Bhagirath Palace in Chandni Chowk, New Delhi, where I think we'll get any brand, any make, everything. Recently, some WhatsApp joke was making rounds. By mistake, some household goods name was written in the medicines to be purchased. And that is not a medicine at all. So then, he was moving from one shop to other. Some people said there is no such medicine. Some other people said, no, give us one day, we will get it. It was not a medicine at all. You will get such medicines also, which are not medicines in Bhagirath Palace. And the most dangerous thing is about the counterfeiting of life-saving drugs. For example, take the case of remdesivir. Here you have the original as well as fake. During the COVID peak period, you must have seen that this injection was very frequently administered by the doctors and hospitals. And look at the way, the minute details there, right? Remdesivir here on the left side. And there, you don't have that RX prescription thing. And somewhere it is vial. Vial is in caps on the original. V is in small on the right side. So you come across even the life-saving drugs being counterfeited. We don't know what is in them. It may be only water. It may be something else. And the net result is that there may be irreparable loss to human life also. So this is another important thing. Now coming to the intellectual property law in India, counterfeit goods or even pirated goods can be addressed by respective laws, right from Trademarks Act 99 to Copyright Act, Patents, Designs, GI, IT Act, IPC, Drugs and Cosmetics Act. Somebody was telling me that if there is a raid on the so-called pharmacies and medical stores in Hyderabad or any place, you will find almost more than 50% of the stores violating the provisions of Drugs and Cosmetics Act, especially in sale of over-the-counter drugs. Sometimes even scheduled drugs are sold like that. Same is the case with Food Safety and Standards Act. Then Money Laundering Act, because most of the counterfeiting takes place even across the border. The illegal proceeds will be coming, entering the India without following the FEMA, FERA, whatever it is. Same is the case with regard to the Customs Act. Then again, we have certain rules made under the Customs Act, IPR, Imported Goods Enforcement Rules. The list is only illustrative in nature, not exhaustive. Then, as far as counterfeit law is concerned, we have a general penal law and also some specific laws as far as IPRs are concerned. As I mentioned in the beginning, the word counterfeit is not defined in the Trademarks Act, which is aimed at protecting the trademarks which are registered, right? But if you go to the Indian Penal Code, Section 28 becomes relevant. It says that a person is said to counterfeit when he produces, makes something that resembles, that, whatever I mentioned about the imitation and all. And there the mens rea can be seen with an intention to deceive or, knows it to be, to likely cause deception. This is one of the important aspects. Counterfeit trademarks cannot be registered. Look at Section 9, absolute grounds for refusal to register the trademark. Section 11, this likely to cause deception, right? To likely cause deception is one of the grounds on which the application can be rejected. Then when you look at the explanations, please try to understand that exact imitation is not essential as far as counterfeiting is concerned. If you take the essential integers and if most of them are imitated or in fact adopted, that may become the in fact counterfeiting which attracts penal provisions. This is the point. Ultimately, the possibility of the consumer being deceived, that is more important. Then come to the Trademarks Act. Probably the only intellectual property law which comes into play is the Trademarks Act. We have number of provisions. I'm not going into them, but you can have a look at some of them. Then we are talking about remedies for infringement and counterfeiting, and that includes falsification and false application of a trademark. And what is falsification? This Nike kind of thing. Then false application. I'll give a small example. Again, a live example. On the outskirts of Hyderabad, you come across an area called Katedan. That's an industrial area. And, sometime back, I went there along with an IPR attorney. We were coming from some other place. Then there was a phone call. He went. I was also called. There, a biscuit factory is situated somewhere. And a police case was filed because the trademark in that particular biscuit was allegedly violated and the company was producing the counterfeit trademarks and applying it to other goods. Same is the case with cooking oils. Many of the oils are not produced by Freedom or Sunflower Company, whatever it is. Maybe, they are produced here, only the false brands are applied. That happens. So one is falsification, the other one is false application. Both of them are cognizable offenses. That is one important point. Maybe, in the instant case, DSP level officer is required to in fact, search or seize or whatever it is. And there is one lacuna here. This is what we feel, that normally before proceeding to the place where the so-called counterfeit goods are found or sold or marketed, normally the DSP is supposed to take the opinion of the registrar of trademarks. Again, people ask us, we are in Hyderabad, registrar of trademark is in Chennai, nearby. So every time we can't go to Chennai and get the opinion. But there are judgments to the effect that as far as possible, you get the opinion before, but it is not fatal even if the opinion of the registrar on the counterfeiting is not taken. This is one important point. Then what exactly is the difference between falsifying the trademark and false application of the trademark? I tried to mention here. It's very clear. So a person is falsifying a trademark when he makes a trademark a deceptively similar mark. And we have already seen Adidas, Adidas kind of thing. Then falsifies any genuine trademark by alteration, addition, effacement or otherwise. We have seen remdesivir and many more things. Falsely applying it means what? Goods are made by someone, but trademarks belong to someone else. Applying them, it is nothing but, kind of unjust enrichment. This is what, and ultimately, you can see on the right side, minimum punishment is starting from 6 months, it might go up to 3 years. Minimum penalty may be 50,000 rupees, it may go up to 2 lakhs. But if there is a subsequent conviction, again, the minimum will increase, right? Minimum will be 1 year imprisonment and minimum fine will be 1 lakh rupees. But there are some people who thrive only on counterfeiting. And when you look at this trademark infringement and counterfeit, you can see that statement there, all counterfeits are infringements, but all infringements are not counterfeits, because we have the requirement of registration under the Trademarks Act, but there may be any number of marks which are outside the registered purview, where we try to, in fact, invoke the passing of action. So the differences are very easy. Trademark infringement is generally a civil wrong, but counterfeit is criminal. I have already mentioned IPC can be invoked. Then the burden of proof in case of trademark infringement normally lies with the plaintiff. But when it comes to counterfeiting, normally, in fact, the mere existence of the identical imitation is the proof enough. The burden is shifted or fastened on the accused person. With regard to copyright, normally, though we use the expression counterfeiting and piracy interchangeably, here these references may be construed as references to piracy. Here you can see there is rampant book piracy, music piracy, cinema piracy, right? Music has come 2 times, software piracy, and this is rampant. For example, Chetan Bhagat's book, normally it is very reasonably priced, maybe 200 rupees, 150 rupees, and you can get it for 20 rupees. Anybody can go to certain places where the pirated books are available. But what is important to note is that the printing quality is bad, the paper quality is bad, and you don't feel like reading the fake. And who are the losers? Government, producers, licensees, users. And as I already said, loss of revenue by the government. And it becomes organized crime in certain cases. And police have abundant powers under the copyright law. Section 64 of the Copyright Act mentions that. Then even the registrar of the copyright also has the power to investigate any ship, dock, or premises, and he can also confiscate the pirated goods, right? And another important aspect, look at this section 63B. Many of us are not aware. Everyone becomes a netizen. Everyone wants to use the system, fine. But when we knowingly use infringed computer programs, are we aware of the fact that the minimum sentence we have to undergo is 7 days? If this is the case, if it is strictly followed, if somebody gives a complaint, I am very sure that 90% of the users of computer systems will have to spend minimum 7 days somewhere. Look at section 63B. Then, of course, we are talking about Anton Pillar orders which are issued. We are talking about Mareva injunctions. We are talking about cease and desist, seize and destroy, many more. And similarly, technological measures. Section 65A also speaks about any attempt to overcome these technological measures. Technological protection measures will be an offense. Ethical hacking may be an exception. And these are the offenses I have already mentioned. So, knowingly infringing or abetting the copyrighted work, or the minimum punishment again almost like the trademark law, right? Possession of plates or knowingly using infringing copies. This is what I mentioned. You can see 63B, the second one from bottom, imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 7 days, but which may extend to 3 years, right? Shall not be less than 7 days. So magistrate also has no business to reduce it, below the 7 days if it is proved. Then, continuing with the other intellectual property laws, Patents Act doesn't provide for criminal remedies, though there is a provision under section 120 with regard to false representation on the goods as if they are patented in India. if any false declaration, false attribution is made like that, then there is a fine and up to 1 lakh rupees. But there are no other criminal remedies. Designs Act also deals with the infringement of designs, colorable imitation, fraudulent imitation, but at the same time, the fine also is very less, 25,000 rupees, and that should be recovered as a contract debt. GI Act, Geographical Indications Act. I made a mention about Nalgonda Orange and Nagpur Orange. This is it. So police officers, again, not below the rank of DSP, they can, in fact, seize the falsified GIs. Hyderabadi Halim is Hyderabadi Halim. But if somebody, prepares some Halim and says that it is Hyderabadi Halim and it is falsely applied, so there can be a search, there can be a seizure, right? But at the same time, again, registrar of the GIs opinion also has to be taken. And police have enough powers. They can also file cases for cheating under section 415. And there are other provisions, 476, 486. I will not go into them. The remedies are so many. We have the remedies under the relevant statutes. We have civil remedies where we can go for injunction, damages, so on and so forth. Then there are criminal remedies, I've already mentioned, under the Trademarks and Copyright Acts. Then again, we have administrative and quasi-judicial remedies where, in fact, the orders can be taken like, it may be by the Registrar of Copyright and Assistant Registrar of Trademarks and many more. Then online counterfeiting. This is very, very important because we are purchasing many of the things only through Amazon or the other, in fact, service providers online. And the fact is that normally any person who purchases things through online service providers are, then look at the first one. 38% of the consumers, out of around 7,000 respondents, they received counterfeit products from an e-commerce site. That was, maybe about 2 years back, 2020. And of course, in India, we have this concept of immunity for online service providers. Section 79 of the Information Technology Act. They always, in fact, invoke that. But when you look at the other countries, especially, you take the case of this Commercial Court of Paris, this Louis Vuitton versus eBay. And there, damages, huge amount of damages worth 38.6 million euros. They were fined as far as eBay is concerned because they refused or they failed to regulate the sale of counterfeit products over its platform. Platform was used. Same is the case with, of course, we also have this Information Technology Act 2000, but there is a tortious liability as far as the companies are concerned, but probably the 2020 regulations, especially the rules which are made under the consumer protection e-commerce rules, they are trying to address the concerns of the consumers. This is another important point. And you can also look at the direct selling guidelines and information technology guidelines. And probably, these are some of the, notorious websites from which you will get any kind of counterfeits, any kind of pirated things. Like, it is like the dark net. I can call it the dark net of counterfeits. So you have so many. And online counterfeiting, I have already mentioned. And there are provisions. Of course, IT Act takes care of them. Section 65 is one of them. Under Section 76, those things can be confiscated. Section 80 speaks about the power of a police officer, not below the rank of inspector, to enter, search, etc., etc. Then Section 76, as I already mentioned, deals with the confiscation. And Section 80, I mentioned just now. And these are some of the cases. I will not go into them. And impact of counterfeiting can be seen here. It will cause huge loss to the genuine product owner. Fact. Because, when the fakes are ruling the roost, the original manufacturer will be put to, heavy loss. Another point is nothing is within the law. Everything is outside the law. So vulnerability of the workers. People always say, when we purchase original goods, when we watch movies in a theater, of course, OTT platform has come, but the cine workers will be suffering a lot if piracy takes place. Then evidence of forced labor, because when counterfeiting operations take place, it's not done in the public eye. They're done clandestinely. If that is the case, there will be violations of labor laws, employment laws, so on and so forth. Very serious thing is loss of taxes and foreign exchange. And it might be used even for funding the illegal and terrorist activities. And last point is very important. Consumers are deceived into buying poor quality products. Sometimes they may not have any choice. And how to identify the counterfeiting? Of course, this is not purely legal issue, but this is a challenge. We need to examine the quality of the product. Then people are always deceived by the low prices. If they say 50% discount, most of the times we will not observe that small writing, up to 50%. Up to will be written in a very small fine print. Same is the case here. Low prices means there is something fishy. And we have to inspect the packaging carefully. Logos and trademarks also must be, because you see, nobody has elephantine memory. But still, there is a possibility that we can identify what is fake and what is original. And especially when we are buying goods over the internet, we have to ask the precise questions, and like, what is the manufacturing facility, from where they are shipped, and so on and so forth. And especially medicines, don't purchase medicines from a street corner medical shop unless the reputation is very good. Then instructions manuals, because normally they will not counterfeit instruction manuals. So when we check, we can easily find out. Then, or we can also check the websites and many more. So impact of counterfeiting on the Indian economy, you can see 8th June is always observed in recent times as the World Anti-Counterfeiting Day. The number of events are conducted. And this year also number of events have been conducted. And here there is a body called Authentication Solution Providers Association, ASPA. It's a self-regulated industry body which takes care of anti-counterfeiting and other solutions. So latest edition is 2021, and it says criminals are contaminating the markets by selling fake and substandard products. And look at what are counterfeited: medicines, health supplements, safety products, hygiene products, and other essentials, especially during COVID crisis. And brand owners or businesses are not the only, victims. As I already mentioned, the government, consumers, so on and so forth. The original right holders will be put to irreparable loss. Same is the case with others. And loss of revenue to the government cannot be, overemphasized. That's always there. And these are the preventive measures. So use of local counsel and investigators. In fact, one area which is emerging today is IP vigilance. I'll give a small example. Under the Copyright Act, there is a provision for formation of copyright societies. Just go to the website of Indian Music Industry, IMI, where you will find that they have a very good networking with the police and others. They can conduct raids. They can seize the pirated, cassettes, CDs. What today there are no cassettes, but CDs, DVDs, whatever it is. They can also prosecute. And most of the counsel, most of the persons who are employed there are former police officials. We worked with some of them, and results were very good. Then effective use of anti-counterfeiting features. There are so many. For example, RFID tag, microscopic tags, barcoding, license databases. Probably, the pirates are those who prepare or manufacture counterfeits. They don't pay attention to these minute details. Then government agencies, it's equally important. And sometimes the international arrangements are necessary because most of the counterfeiting takes place across the border. So this is the small presentation, friends. I hope that I have thrown light on some of the important areas. Now I will, again stop here.
Thank you very much, sir, for the elaborate discussion and lecture on the counterfeiting and piracy. in both physical and digital world. So I would just like to thank the participants for being with us in our journey till now, and we other team members and staff of the IPR chair thank our chair professor for this nice session and also for conducting this series. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you all. Thank you.